Forget every dusty scroll you've ever seen, because we are about to dive straight into the absolute foundational nuclear-level family feud that set the entire damn cosmos on fire. Real talk, before there were kings, there were the gods. When Osiris, the ultimate goat, got brutally done dirty and booted off the throne, the whole kingdom shattered. The vibe went from chill to zero in a heartbeat. What happened next wasn't some peaceful debate or town hall meeting. Nah, fam, this was the moment the world witnessed the blueprint for all future devastation. The high-stakes, maximum damage, no-holds-barred clash of two divine forces ready to throw hands for the keys to the entire civilization. We're talking about the genesis of all political betrayal, the original source code for all conflict. Get ready to witness the undisputed main event, the OG rumble for the soul of the Nile Delta, the only battle that matters. This is it, Horus versus Set, the divine civil war, the very first time the gods decided diplomacy was dead and it was time to run the fade for eternal dominance. This ancient beef was the dead-ass bloody blueprint for the first civil war that ever rocked the unified state. The fight still hits different today. Does the system ruled by sacred legitimacy, Horus, take the crown, or does raw savage chaos, Set, swallow the whole damn thing? Get ready, because this is the ancient Egyptian lore drop that goes straight fire. When Mot got cancelled. The OG Civil War draft started with an atomic-level crime. When Set, the desert brute, took out his own brother Osiris just to snatch what wasn't his, he didn't just commit murder, he shredded the whole living vibe check of the cosmos, Mot itself. Mot was the balance, the justice Egypt was built on, and Osiris was the radiating main character of it all. Set snapped. He didn't just kill him, he chopped him into pieces and scattered the body parts across the entire Nile Valley, a horrifying flex, a symbolic declaration that the unity of the land was cancelled, tainted by lurking chaos. The feeder of shade and dirty finessing. This whole detailed story, penned during Dynasty 20, Chester Beatty Papyrus 1, drops truth bombs about a level of shade and political toxicity that cannot be dismissed as simple family beef. This was a zero-sum death match for the ultimate crown, using every psychological and physical weapon to gaslight and silence the opponent. Set, flexing his unmatched strength, went straight for the physical mutilation. In a scene that sends chills, he rips out the eye of Horus, the moon, the celestial authority that sees everything, trying to blind the legitimate heir from ever seeing Mot again. But the dirtiest, most sickening move, showing how toxic the political war got, was Set's attempt to trash Horus's legitimacy through public sexual humiliation. Set invited Horus to his spot and tried to force dominance through a degrading sexual act, aiming to plant his seed inside Horus. This would symbolically turn Horus into the submissive, stripping him of his eligibility to rule. Horus only clutched the situation thanks to his mom, Isis. She collected Set's tainted seed and secretly hid it in Set's favorite snack, lettuce. Then, the divine Horus bleed exploded as a glowing gold disc right above Set's head in front of the whole God Squad panel. Dead-ass proof that Set was the one who got metaphorically owned. But the cursed throne didn't stop wild in there. In a psychotic rage, after Isis dared to show mercy to her brother Set, Horus committed the unforgivable sin. He took a heavy copper blade and chopped off his own mother's head. This savage scene is only mirrored by Set crushing Horus's testicles, a symbolic shutdown of the entire dynasty's bloodline. This throwdown, packed with blood, stabs, emasculation, and implied sexual violence, was the ultimate expression of the raw chaos that can swallow a whole nation when the system evaporates. Bureaucracy as the main villain. 80 years of chaos. The first documented civil war in ancient Egyptian history didn't start with swords clashing, nah. It started because of 80 years of total, intentional judicial paralysis. That's insane institutional failure. Horus and Set battled for Osiris's throne for an entire generation while the court couldn't decide. The Supreme Court, whose only job is to keep Mot, universal order, on lock, totally flopped. The Chester Beatty Papyrus spills the ugly truth. The big boss, Ra, was low-key throwing the entire process. Ra carried a massive, deep, personal grudge against Isis, Horus's mother, because she had previously duped him, forcing him to spill his secret name, a cosmic humiliation. So, Ra, being the ultimate toxic boss, absolutely refused to crown Horus, using the flimsy excuse that the kid's too young and doesn't have the experience. This right here is divine bureaucratic corruption at its finest, the fate of an entire nation decided by an extended, petty, ancient personal beef. A legitimate claim to the throne got dragged out into a long, pointless trial, whose only purpose was massaging the ego and protecting the shaky image of the first judge. When the anarchist flexes a quarter-ton wrecking ball. This institutional failure gave Set, the god of chaos, 80 years of legal legitimacy to hang around and be a menace, turning the public hearings into immoral contests of straight-up extortion. When the board of directors, the Ennead, finally started leaning hard toward crowning Horus, Set knew his game was over. Legitimacy was about to win. So, in the climax of the courtroom drama, Set pulled the ultimate final boss move. Pure, unhinged violence and direct blackmail against the judiciary itself. Stone cold, Set publicly threatened the gathered gods with this chilling line: "I'm gonna grab my mace that weighs 4,500 Deben and I'll kill one of you every day." This massive weapon, weighing around 400 kilograms, a quarter ton of brute force, was a symbol of raw, uncontrollable power that announced the end of the rule of law and logic in the cosmos. He made it clear: if the broken bureaucratic channels wouldn't give him the win, he'd take it with sheer force and mass murder. The crisis wasn't solved by a fancy judicial debate. It took an aggressive external intervention, a threat letter sent by Osiris himself from the underworld, reminding the gods that their actual role was protecting justice, not dragging out destructive personal beef. So, finally, after 80 years of stalls, bias, and death threats, the judgment dropped. Horus was crowned, but the court records are stained forever, a massive reminder that corruption isn't just stealing cash, it's the toxic, intentional, deadly failure to make the right call in the clutch moment. The 16-pound crime, the heavy blade of vengeance. 80 years deep into this messy celestial lawsuit, the drama was pure cringe, but the real trauma drop, the moment that was certified unhinged, was when the legit heir committed the most shocking, gruesome crime in the god archives, straight up bodying his own mom with a heavy metal dagger that was dead-ass 16 pounds of doom. Down in the big green deep where Horus and Set were battling as colossal hippo kaiju, Isis, the ultimate tactical queen, knew her reckless son needed a clutch intervention. She forged a colossal, thick copper spear loaded with enchantments, aiming to one-shot Set and end the beef. But in a massive plot twist, the spear missed Set and shanks Horus instead. Isis used high-tier healing magic and immediately patched up her son, but the spear is still stuck in Set and he's spiraling on the edge of oblivion. Right there in that critical moment, Isis pulled a move that was politically unpardonable in the divine world. Blood ties and maternal feelings overpowered the secret duty of vengeance mandated by the Mott system. The traitor tax, institutional blood betrayal. Set, barely clinging to life, drops the lowest key, most gut-wrenching plea: "Sis, I'm your brother." That cheap emotional pull, the very link Set ignored when he murdered Osiris, cut deep. In one fatal second, Isis caved. She showed pity and pulled the killing spear out of Set's body. She broke the strict ride-or-die rules built into Mott, choosing family over the stability of the state. To Horus, this wasn't just mid-level betrayal, this was the ultimate backstabbing, a full 10 out of 10 trauma dump. Horus bursts out of the water, not with that composed falcon gaze, but looking like a pure, unhinged beast. His anger? That was the holy rage of the rightful heir watching his noble cause get executed on the altar of pity by his supposed strongest ally. In an absolute political meltdown that shattered every rule of acceptable mythology, Horus didn't even hesitate. He snatched this machete of fate, a heavy chopping tool described in the ancient Egyptian texts as weighing over 16 pounds. Imagine the sheer physical weight of that materialized rage. This wasn't some tiny kitchen knife. This was a massive ritual or war slab, and the young falcon used it to totally sever Isis's head from her body. the cow head consequences, retrofitting the queen. The entire Ennead freaked out. They were fine with Set's usual mayhem, but matricide? That was a catastrophic violation of the cosmic order, Mot. The gods were heated and immediately sentenced Horus for killing his mother. Thoth, the supreme god of wisdom and magical cheat codes, stepped in. He resurrects Isis, but her body was missing the main operating unit. She needed a replacement dome stat. The result was shocking and cold-bloodedly ironic. Thoth slotted a cow head onto Isis, a bizarre, specific detail linking her to Hathor. The mother who betrayed her son's political cause due to too much feeling got neutralized, head-swapped, and put back into her divine form without the decision-making power to mess up the sacred political balance again. With the 16-pound crime, Horus established a terrifying political principle. The heir will not tolerate softness or emotion when the crown is on the line. The price was utterly brutal: his mom's blood for Egypt's eternal title.
The material evidence when myth hit civil war, 2890 BCE. The Horus vs. Set saga wasn't just a saga, it was a documented investigation written in fire and blood about the first verified civil war in human history, which absolutely tore Egypt apart during the Second Dynasty, circa 2890 BCE. Unified Egypt was straight-up Horus territory under the First Dynasty, but the Second Dynasty hit a terrible dry spell. We got increasing drought and a catastrophic dip in the Nile. That weakness in controlling natural forces lowered the Horus prestige among the people, especially in the north, which was always the secret fanbase of Set, the chaotic, wild desert god. And that's when the myth hit reality hard. Crown betrayal. Sekhemib flips the script. King Sekhemib is the MVP material evidence drop right here. Sekhemib, a pharaoh during the Dark Second Dynasty, circa 2890 BCE, was the first ruler to have the absolute audacity to remove the sacred Horus logo from the top of his Serek frame. He swapped it out for the bizarre, terrifying animal head associated with Set, the Lord of Chaos and the Desert. In that high-stakes, hyper-religious political context, this wasn't just changing his aesthetic, it was an official declaration of rebellion against the Horian legitimacy that had forcibly unified the land. This radical pivot meant the ruling power, the king, was signaling full, open support to the enemy tribal geographical faction, the rebellious Red Kingdom of the North. This blatant crown betrayal explains why the myth was so stacked with extreme violence and deliberate physical mutilation. The legendary feud, including Set trying to sexually groom Horus and Horus retaliating by snatching Set's testicles, was a vicious reflection of the dirty political fight for eternal succession. Blood in the South, the peak of the Civil War. Sekhemib going full Set stand confirmed the political split perfectly mirrored the ancient divine rift. Egypt was openly divided, the Horian wing, south, centered at Thebes and Abydos, versus the rebellious Set wing, north. The civil war during this period peaked into absolute carnage. Surviving inscriptions show the northern Set forces managed an unprecedented deep strike into southern territories, with battles reaching the city of Nekeb, located over 100 miles south of Abydos. This deep penetration proves southern control had almost completely collapsed under the weight of the rebellion. But the tide turned hard when the next king, Chassekem, stepped up. This guy was a certified Horus loyalist and brought the absolute bloody pain to the rebellious north. Surviving statues of him, violently carved at Nekhen or Hierapolis, show him wearing only the white crown of the south, with piles of hundreds of defeated northern bodies stacked around the base of his throne. Undeniable physical evidence of the brutality of this internal civil war. Chassekem realized just winning the battle wasn't enough to put out this eternal flame of division. To crush the simmering beef, he changed his whole moniker from Chassekem, power appears, to Chassekemwe, the two powerful ones appear, meaning Horus and Set together.
He then slapped both the Horus and Set symbols above his name, an unmistakable signal. This historic concession wasn't about finding peaceful reconciliation. It was a brutal, coercive political mashup. The message to all of Egypt was cold. Chaos and order, north and south, you are now ruled by one pharaoh, whether you like it or not, because the survival of the state demands it. The zero-tolerance threat drop. 80 years deep into this messy celestial lawsuit, the Ennead court was totally choked out, stuck in a political bottleneck. This absolute political chokehold only broke when the ultimate third party dropped in, someone whose authority no god on earth could ghost, Osiris, the OG king of the dead. The response Osiris sent back wasn't soft dad advice. Nah, this was a direct, calculated, straight-up, pro-level death threat aimed at the entire Judiciary Council. Osiris didn't just affirm his son's legit claim to the throne, he used a terrifyingly calculated diplomacy move to ensure the verdict was implemented ASAP. He basically reminded the high gods that the immortality they flexed on Earth didn't grant them immunity from his cold wrath in his realm. Osiris sent a coded message to Ra and his squad, and it was pure fire. Listen up. This whole domain I'm running down here, the underworld, it's packed with messengers rocking grim-faced attitudes, evil spirits and ghosts, and they don't fear any god or goddess above ground. I'm finna release them, and they will come and snatch the heart of anyone playing dirty or messing with justice. They'll be stuck here with me forever. That was the nuclear option. That was the final shot that ended the whole beef. The second Osiris's terrifying text message dropped, all of Set's flimsy arguments went straight into the shadow realm. The ultimate payoff deal? Importing strange gods. To ensure Set didn't immediately turn full chaos agent after taking the most embarrassing L, they had to drop a serious golden exit strategy, a deal so fire he couldn't refuse. Neith, a powerful warrior goddess, clutched up with a brilliant diplomatic solution to end the deep-seated rivalry. Set was granted double his current properties, pure political compensation to soothe his bruised ego, and, crucially, he was given Ra's 2 daughters as wives, the goddesses Enat and Astarte. Wait, what? Enat and Astarte aren't basic Egyptian OGs, they're high-level imported war and fertility deities from the Levant, Canaan. Bringing in foreign power players like this as mandatory compensation points to one terrifying truth. The Egyptian gods were absolutely desperate to placate Set and prevent him from restarting the whole destructive war cycle. This was a pure peace-buying strategy to stabilize the fragile divine structure. Finally, Set folded. He couldn't ignore the clear threat dropping in from Osiris, and he couldn't walk away from a compensation package that slapped this hard. He swallowed his pride and recognized Horus as the legit king of Egypt. Set becomes the cosmic security detail. Set wasn't wiped off the map. His wild, unhinged power just got a harsh, forced reroll. After accepting defeat and crowning Horus, the symbol of order or Ma'at, king, Ra forcibly repurposed Set into the ultimate cosmic scheme. Set's new gig? He was now the personal guard and protector of Ra himself. He was required to ride shotgun on the night sunbark, which cruises through the dark underworld every single night, shielding the vessel from the biggest threat to existence, the giant snake, Apep, or Apophis, the embodiment of absolute, unmitigated chaos. This is the deep mythological read. Chaos wasn't eradicated, it was tamed and weaponized to serve the established order. Set, the god of storms and raw, disorganized power, wasn't exiled. He became the fiercest first line of defense against the chaos threatening to devour everything. Set, the dude who killed his brother and was a deposed usurper, transformed into a savage, necessary guardian of the universe. Set's glow up, the new Chad on the sunbark. What happened during the New Kingdom, especially in the era of the majestic Ramessides, 19th and 20th dynasties, was truly shocking. Set underwent a full-on professional rehabilitation, transforming from brother killer and Horus's rival into the indispensable cosmic superhero. Set, the volatile god of storms and disorder, wasn't spiritually canceled. Instead, his immense violence was called up, and his destructive energy was channeled into a holy mission. This was the ultimate cosmic transaction. Horus, you can keep the earthly throne, but Set has the raw muscle we desperately need in a darker, more dangerous place. Set became the undisputed champion responsible for protecting the sun god Ra on the nightly cruise ship. Imagery shows him standing tall at the prow of the boat, stabbing the massive snake with a gigantic spear, using his documented controlled chaos against the uncontrolled limitless chaos. This dramatic pivot isn't a moral redemption for Set, it's the practical utilization of directed evil energy, like placing an unstable nuclear reactor under strict control to shield the entire city. For the Egyptians, you can't defeat chaos unless you deploy something even stronger than it is. Ramesside pride, belonging to Holy Set. The 19th and 20th dynasties, the era of the great imperial Ramessides, saw a disturbing, impressive merger between Set and supreme royal authority. Set was no longer just the painful symbol of the old family feud, he became the symbol of the massive military strength needed for an empire dominating the Near East. Pharaoh Seti I, father of the legendary warrior Ramses the Great, didn't hesitate to adopt the powerful god's name. Seti I literally means man of Set, or he who belongs to Set. This brazen adoption signals that his strength and military rigor stemmed directly from the god of the desert and directed storms. Even wilder, the Ramesside pharaohs who led some of the bloodiest battles in Egyptian history, like the Battle of Kadesh, named their fiercest combat units after Set. One of the Egyptian army's most powerful divisions was called the Set Division, alongside the Amun and Ra divisions. The god who allegedly chopped off Horus's testicles became the name that inspired the hardest warriors in the trenches. This contradiction sums up the extreme Egyptian view of the gods. They aren't always perfect moral examples. They are massive natural forces that can be cleverly exploited to serve Ma'at. The papyrus scandal, when myth becomes viral content. And here's the ultimate plot twist that changes our whole perspective on this story. The primary text that spills all the tea about the nasty disputes we read about earlier, the Chester Beatty Papyrus I, which holds all the shocking incidents like the sexual competition and the mutilations between Horus and Set, wasn't necessarily holy scripture read solemnly in temples. Detailed textual analysis reveals that this papyrus, copied in the late 20th dynasty, contained the dispute narrative right alongside other poetic love songs. Egyptologists strongly suggest that it was copied for the writer's personal entertainment and for his private elite group. It wasn't necessarily a religious text used for worship. This whole Ra reveal doesn't cancel the core legend entirely, but it does show why Set's duality was built different. That extreme, high-stakes pendulum swing was accepted because Egyptian culture saw these deities as functional entities whose roles could switch up over time, entirely dependent on the desperate need of the imperial structure to keep the cosmic order from collapsing. Set, the pioneer of organized chaos, dropped the ultimate truth bomb. Even in his most terrifying modes, this dude was 100% essential. But it makes you wonder, if the entire cosmic balance demands a destroyer to stand guard, if stability itself needs the monster in the corner office, then what does that actually say about the universe we're living in? Is the system truly blessed, or is the throne just waiting for the next tyrant to claim the W?